So if you're watching this, I'm guessing that you use n8n and then you have multiple different agents and chatbots that do a number of different things. But if you're anything like me, what really annoys you is you having to go into n8n to use your chatbots and agents and having to scroll through all of your automations and find the one that you want to use and speak to. And then perhaps you want to carry on a conversation you were having with it the other day. And it's all a bit of a nightmare. If only there was a place where you could have all of your n8n agents and chatbots in one place. Well, that is what I have built. This is my basic dashboard built with bubble.io, where I can speak to, where I can connect with any agent, any chatbot that I've built in n8n. Let's have a look at it and then I'll show you how it works. Okay, so here we are within the dashboard that I've built. We can see on the left-hand side, we've got all of the agents. Then we've got the conversations for each agent. And then obviously we have the conversation or the chat itself. So this one here, the to-dos, is one where I've used Notion, it's this one here, to connect and speak to my to-do list in Notion. So here are all my to-do items, and this n8n automation allows me to speak to it, add new ones, delete ones, change dates, change priorities, etc. And we can go in here and we can start a new conversation with it, and we can say, what is my most urgent work task to do? And we'll send that off, and then this is going to run this agent here within n8n, and it's going to go and speak to Notion and bring back that information and bring it back into this dashboard. You can see here it's come back and said the most urgent work to do is call Dave and then plan the next sprints. Both are overdue by now, and you can see I can do some work here to the formatting to make it look nicer. But you can see here, if we go over to Notion and we go to executions, this is the one that we have just ran here, and we can carry on and say delete the item called Dave. And then this is going to again use this agent, and it's going to go onto Notion and delete that item. And there we go, Cool Dave has successfully been deleted. If we go across to Notion, we can see Cool Dave is no longer there. And I've got a couple of other ones in here. This is my Gymshark analysis one, so competitor analysis, and I'm using Gymshark in this scenario, where I can create a new conversation, and we can say update all of my competitors' pricing data and let me know of any changes. We'll send that off, and again this is going to go and run this automation that we've got set up here on n8n. All of these are ones from previous videos, so if you want to see how any of these actually work, you can go across and check those out. And it's going to come back and it's going to look at this sheet here, you look at the URL, scrape the web page, update the prices, and then tell us, and there we go, it's just updated the prices, and tell us what has changed. So it's just coming back. And it says these three have been changed, what they've been changed from or what they've been changed to, and then no change to these ones. And then we've got another one with business info, and this one using Pinecone, where we store information about a fictional business that we run, and we can speak to it. So you can see here with these ones, we can bring any agent, any workflow, any chat from n8n and build our own dashboard with it. Let's have a look at how it works from the data perspective. So here we are within Bubble. This is not going to be a full-on tutorial about Bubble. This will apply to essentially any no-code or code builder that you're using, because we're going to be looking first at the APIs, which are pretty much universal across any sort of platform. You're going to be using APIs. So I've got several set up here. The one that we're going to focus upon is the n8n agents. So first of all, whenever you want to set this up, you'll have to go across to n8n. You will have to select a workflow, and you'll have to make sure it's got a chat trigger. And then what we're going to want to do is open this up, and we've got to make sure that it is publicly available. And when you click this, it is then going to show you the URL here. And this is the endpoint that we're going to connect to with our APIs. And really importantly, this is the webhook ID, this number here. So what we need to do is turn this on, copy this, and then we want to save it and make sure it's active. Then we're going to come across to Bubble or whatever you're using. And you'll see here, we have set up an API call here. And this endpoint here is a post request. And the endpoint is exactly, which one did we look at earlier? I think it was this one, is exactly this endpoint here. So you'll put that in there. Now, what I have done here is I have made the webhook ID, which was the ID number that we saw here. And I've made that a variable, meaning that I can use this single API call with any of the agents, and with each different agent, all I am doing is replacing the webhook ID, because we are still calling the same endpoint, the only difference being the webhook ID. So in my Bubble database, I've got a list of my different agents, and each different agent has a different webhook ID, which is the different ID that they each have when you have a look here. This way, I can have one API call that can speak to all of my agents. So that's the endpoint. We want to return JSON data, make it an action, post request, and then the body of it looks a little bit like this. Very simple. all we're sending is chat ID, which is the session ID is what it'd be called in n8n. We're then sending a message as well, and this is the text that we want to send. And then we have to send root as well, and the root is always going to be general. The other two, so the message of what we're typing is obviously going to vary depending upon what we want to send, and the chat ID is to do with that session. So the chat ID, session ID, or conversation, you can see here I call these conversations, and this is what these refer to. However, you can call them whatever you want. The important thing to know here is that when we pass these into n8n, we're going to have to change a few things. So we're going to have to go in and we will have to change a couple of these items in order to make them accept this new information coming from the API call. So what we're going to have to do is if we open up this AI agent here, and if we open it up so we can see, and this is the line that we want to change here, the message. So because we are passing this in from our API call, we want to make sure that it's handled correctly. You can see I've got two here. The reason I have two is that one of them, this one here, is the one that is configured to work when we are just using the chat within n8n. So I should say you can continue to use this within n8n. You don't just have to stop and just use it within the dashboard that you build. You can use both of them, both the dashboard and n8n. However, we are also using this, which is the message from the API call. And this is called JSON.message because this parameter is called message. We can change this to whatever we want. And if you do change that, you will have to change this. But we are sending both of these. And the reason for this is that if we are talking solely through n8n, then this is going to be empty. So we'll only see this, so whatever the chat is from within n8n. If we're using the API, then this is going to be empty, and all it's going to be inputted here into the message section is going to be the message passed from the API. Hopefully that makes sense. And we're going to have to do the same thing with the session ID, which is especially relevant on the window buffer memory or the simple memory. And you can see here, we've got both of those as well. We've got the session ID, which comes from the chat here within n8n. So if we want it to run in n8n, that is going to be used and that's going to be filled in, and the chat ID will be blank. But if we are calling it from the API, then this chat ID, again, that's the name of the parameter. And if you change the name, you'll have to change it within n8n as well. But that is the name that we are passing in here. If we open it up, we see that JSON.chatID has got to be identical here. And that's going to allow us to speak to our agents via API. And that's really the backbone of this dashboard, is being able to connect to your agents, your chatbots via API. And then all I'm doing within Bubble is that I've got a data structure. I will show you what that looks like here in Miro. So you can see that I've got a list of users. So everyone that can use this dashboard, this could be your team members. And then we have a list of agents, we have a list of conversations, and we have a list of messages. And you could add a lot more information here, such as on the agent, you could add an image. If you want to add an image for each agent, you could add a description. But essentially all we need is a way to link these together so that each user has a list of agents. Each agent has a webhook ID, which is the part that we mentioned over here, this part here, this ID here, and what we were passing in to the API call here. And then once it's got the webhook ID, we need it to be linked to conversations. So conversations need to have a parent agent. There are different ways you can structure this database, but essentially conversations need to have an agent, and there's going to be multiple conversations within one agent. And messages belong to a conversation, but there are going to be multiple messages per conversation. And the way that looks in Bubble, if we come over to the back end, is you can see we have users here, which have a list of agents. And you can see I've got my 4 agents at the moment, which you can see here. I then have the agents set up. So you can see they've got their names here, which is shown here as well. And they have their webhook ID, which is the ID from n8n. We then have the conversations, and you can see that these are all of the conversations from the different agents, and you can see they've got their parent IDs here, and they have got their conversation ID, and I'll talk about this in just a minute. And then the messages, which belong to a conversation, they are all here, and you can see they've all got the content within them. So let's have a look at the front end. Again, this is not a tutorial on Bubble, and we're not going to go into it deeply, but let's have a quick look. So on the page on Bubble, I am storing the conversation, which is selected as a custom state, and also an agent as well. So on the repeating group on the left-hand side, because we've got 3 columns here, on the left column, we've got a repeating group with all of our agents in, which is just coming through from finding all of the users' agents. We've then got a conversations repeating group, and this repeating group here is getting all the conversations from the page's selected agent. So whichever agent is selected here, we're getting all of the conversations related to that. And then in basically the same way, what is going to be shown on the right-hand side within the conversation is all of the messages that are from the conversation, which is selected in this. So you can see here, they basically work the same. It's just 3 different layers to it. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions about this, you want to ask anything, you want to see how you can implement it yourself, then do head on over to the community. It's free to join, Applied AI Club, where I help everyone out with different problems they have and share lots of information as well. So if you want any more in-depth information, that's the place to go. But then what we're doing here is we're doing 2 things, really. 2 things which are important is when a new conversation is created, let's have a look here. We are creating a new conversation within Bubble. However, the important thing here is that we have to create a conversation ID. And this is what's going to be used to essentially link all of the messages together and say all of these messages are part of one conversation. And when we send that off to n8n via the API, that is the chat ID that we're passing. And the chat ID, again, says these are the past messages that have been sent. So the agent or the chatbot knows what those previous messages are, because otherwise n8n doesn't have a way to link together which messages are which. So that's really important that we include the chat ID here. So when we create a new conversation, we are also generating a random conversation ID, which is 32 letters long, letters and numbers. And then the only other really significant processing that we're doing is when we press the send button. Let's have a look at that workflow. So we are creating a few new data objects within Bubble. We're creating a new message. And then we're doing a few things on the front end, but this is really the API call here. And what we are doing is the webhook ID, which again is our agent ID essentially, is coming from the page's selected agent. So whichever agent is selected on the left-hand side, we're going to pass that through into the API call. The conversation ID is from the selected conversation here, and we're passing that through to the API. And then the message is simply coming from, well, it's coming from step 1, but step 1's content is coming from that input group here. So you can see that all we're having to pass through when we send a message off is the ID of the agent, the ID of the conversation, and the actual message we want to send. And then because it's a post request, if we have a look over here, the API call is a post request. We're going to get a response, and the response is going to look like this. Very simple. All we've got is an output. So what we are doing is when the send button is pressed, we're creating a message, we're doing a few things on the front end, we are running this API call, and this is going to run synchronously, which means that step 7 is only going to run when step 6 has completed. So on step 7, we can say create a new message, and we can say make the content of that new message whatever the result is from step 6, and make it the output from step 6. Hopefully that makes sense. And then we don't give it a from. You can see that when we create a message here, because it's from us, we're saying from the current user, but when it's from AI, we're just leaving that blank, and that's how we're formatting the messages here. If you're unsure about how we're formatting the conversation, there's a lot of videos on YouTube about how you can create a chat interface within Bubble, or if you're using a different tool, then there'll be lots of tutorials on how to create it on those tools too. And that's all we're doing. We've got a few more things here, which are just doing some stuff on the front end to make it look and function a bit better, but that's all we're doing on a data side of things. It's really quite simple. We are simply creating a front end where we can select the agent and the conversation. We are then calling an API, let me find it here, which is very simple. All we need to do on n8n is to make it publicly available, this chat, and find the endpoint with that webhook ID. We then run our API call to that endpoint with our agent ID in it. We make sure we've got our chat ID, our conversation ID, our session ID, lots of different names for it, and our message through. And then the response we're going to get back is simply the response that we're going to get from this agent if we were going to run it in n8n. It's exactly the same response. And again, the only thing you need to change is the message. So wherever you have the message that would usually come from the chat, you need to also include the JSON.message or whatever you call that parameter, and then also the same for the session ID. Hopefully you can see how this is useful, where you can have all of your agents, all of your chatbots in one location, so you're not having to go through n8n, you're not having to scroll and find previous conversations. You can also make this a lot more complex. You can make it support images and videos being sent in and also being sent back to you rather than just text. You could be able to change the prompt from within this front end here. You can really really do anything, which is the power of all these software tools like Bubble, like Flutterflow, like building software with Cursor. What I've shown you in this video is the backbone of how to make it work with those API calls with n8n. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you do have any questions or queries, then do head on over to the community. It'd be fantastic if you've liked this video to give it a like. And of course, if you want to see more videos like this, then please do subscribe, and I'll be producing more videos to do with AI, to do with software, to do with using AI to actually make your business more efficient and more profitable. Anyway, I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.